I always kick off draft season every single year by looking at some elite prospect. Whether it's Chase Young or Myles Garrett, Leonard Fournette, Saquon Barkley, Quinnen Williams, usually the first episode or two are all these elite names that everybody knows and they get tons of views. They're going to be top 3 or 5 picks. And that's cool. I mean, it's become kind of a yearly thing for me to go after the low-hanging fruit first. But this year, I think I'm going to change things up, and I'm going to kick off the 2021 draft cycle by taking a look at 5 players that you probably don't know now, but I can promise you that you will know them soon. Let's get to it. All right, first things first, before we get into this, I do want to thank today's sponsor, Magic Spoon, for helping to make this show possible. And I also want to extend a very special thank you to the Magic Spoon PR department, whoever you people happen to be, for accidentally sending me extra cereal last week, and I appreciate your mistake. First up on our list of 5 very underrated 2021 NFL draft prospects, we have Clemson wide receiver Amari Rogers. Rogers is the son of T. Martin, who you may recognize as one of the best wide receiver coaches in all of college football for many years before he was just hired by the Ravens this offseason. And Martin is credited with developing a whole slew of future NFL players, and good ones at that, like Michael Pittman, Juju Smith-Schuster, Robert Woods, Nelson Agholor, Marquise Lee, Randall Cobb, among many others. He has put a lot of prospects into the NFL, and good ones at that. And you can tell that Amari is his son by just how great a route runner and by how polished overall that he really is. Rogers has a wide variety of releases at his disposal, he's incredibly quick in and out of his breaks as well, and he even has some pretty good long speed to go with his short area burst. Plus, he has great balance and really good body control to adjust to even the most poorly thrown balls with ease. And honestly, other than his size and catch radius, obviously, he really is the complete package as a pure wide receiver. He led Clemson in virtually every single receiving category last year after now being fully recovered from a torn ACL from 2019. And then after the season, he went down to the Senior Bowl just to make a statement and dominated the one-on-ones for 3 straight days. Rogers might not be that big, again at only 5'10 and maybe 210 pounds at most, but his quickness, vertical acceleration, hands, toughness, and just innate feel for the game more than make up for his lack of height and length. Truth be told, to me, he's a slightly smaller version of Golden Tate, and I mean that in an extremely positive way, because Golden Tate has been a really good slot receiver and return man for a very long time. Now, moving on to number 4 on my list of highly underrated 2021 prospects, we have Mizzou safety Tyree Gillespie. Gillespie, I think, has flown under the radar mostly because he's been categorized as a box safety, but to me, he also has range on the back end, and I think if you want to rotate the other way for a few snaps and drop whatever true free safety you have down to a hook zone and like a robber look, or maybe put that other safety in the slot, something like that, Tyree can still survive in the deep middle. He is fast enough to do that. And with his speed, what that also means is that from 2 high looks, where he's lined up maybe 12 or 13 yards off the line of scrimmage, he can still come down from depth and fit the run quickly as well. He's a lot rangier than you think, and certainly more rangy than a lot of prototypical box safeties. Now, beyond that, he's obviously also a fantastic enforcer against the run, and he's a great tackler in space. He was even able to win on the goal line a couple times against Najee Harris when he played against Alabama, which, if you watch a lot of Bama, you know that that almost never happens. Najee's one of the best power backs in the whole country, if not the best, and Gillespie was able to stop him cold multiple times, even on the same drive. But as I said, he's not just a run defender. He's not just a good box enforcer. He can also take away tight ends in man coverage very easily too, with that length and aforementioned speed. Kyle Pitts, who I think everybody can agree is the best tight end in this draft class and probably the last few draft classes, got basically nothing done against him at all in their matchup last season. Gillespie covered him man-to-man many times throughout that game, and Pitts literally only got one out route off him, off like a rub for, I think, 8 yards, maybe 9 yards at most. But again, he couldn't get anything else against him for the entirety of that afternoon. It was an awesome performance by Gillespie, and it showed what he's capable of doing against another elite talent. So all told, you have a great box run defender who can cover big body tight ends in man coverage, and he can survive deep down the field as a post safety as well. I mean, what's not to like, you know? There's no other safety in this draft class that has a pass breakup against Devonta Smith, an open field tackle against Jalen Waddle, a goal line stop against Najee Harris, and great coverage on tape against Kyle Pitts, all in the same season. There's nobody else's resume who looks like that, except Tyree Gillespie. Every single DB coach and special teams in the league would love to have him on their team, especially if they're in a division that is loaded with dangerous tight ends like the AFC West or NFC West. Just trust me, I know it sounds completely out of left field, but you have to watch out for this guy and what he does in the pros. He is a lot better football player than you think. Now, speaking of better football players than we expect, the third guy on my list, Kentucky linebacker Jamin Davis. And trust me, I do not say this lightly, so don't think that this is bait. But by the end of this process, I have a sneaking suspicion that Davis is going to end up as my second ranked linebacker overall. Davis is long, he's fast, he's smart, he's got cover skills. Honestly, he reminds me a lot of Zach Cunningham when he was coming out of Vanderbilt, but with way better speed and coverage ability. He's a lot more versatile of a prospect. Plus, unlike some other big and fast linebackers in this draft class that have a lot more hype than Davis right now, cough cough Micah Parsons, when you watch Davis's film, you can actually see that he understands the subtlety of the linebacker position. He has a natural feel for fitting the run, he has good awareness in zone coverage and route distributions around him. He's not just an athlete that's trying to learn a new position that has tremendous physical upside, like some other guys in this class. He's a linebacker that will be in the right place at the right time in your defense from day one with minimal coaching. And that is important to me. I think when you look at him in the context of this whole linebacker class, he is one of, if not the best value of the bunch. He plays the position with better instincts than Micah Parsons, I'm not afraid to say that. He's bigger than Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who I have as the only linebacker with a higher grade than Davis. He's just as fast, if not faster, than Zaven Collins from Tulsa, and he plays in a system that's a bit easier to translate to the NFL than Tulsa's is. Plus, he's also better in coverage and getting off blocks than Nick Bolton from Mizzou. So, I mean, he's got it all. He is the Fred Warner of this draft class to me. The guy that gets overlooked for prospects that have way more hype than he does, but when they all get to the pros, he ends up being a better player than most, if not all of them. I really do believe in him that much. For a guy that's going to go later in the draft, probably on day 2, if you're getting a similarly talented linebacker with tons of upside comparable to the guys going on day 1, that's a pretty damn good value to me. Now, number 2 on my list will probably end up going way after Davis in the draft. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up as a day 3 pick, maybe somewhere around the 4th or 5th round, seems like the sweet spot. But I think that his role in the NFL is going to be incredibly important, and that is UCLA running back / wide receiver / whatever the fuck you want him to be, Demetric Felton. Felton reminds me of, and I know this is also going to get a lot of gasps in the comments, but he reminds me a lot of Javid Best, a do-it-all weapon out of the backfield that can either get carries and pop off big runs, or you can play him as basically your third wide receiver in the slot, and he'll be damn good at it. No matter where he lines up, if you get him the ball, he will make plays. That was Javid Best at Cal and in Detroit, and it's going to be Demetric Felton as well. He started out his college career at UCLA as a wide receiver, and then midway through his time there, they converted him to running back, where he had a lot of success. Just watch the Wazoo game from a couple years back as evidence of that. And then after his redshirt senior year, he wanted to prove that he could still play receiver at a high level, so he went down to the Senior Bowl as a receiver, not a running back, and he absolutely smoked every single DB on the field. He was one of the nastiest route runners all week long in Mobile. Absolutely nobody could cover him. And if I was an NFL team, I would keep him at running back, but still use that incredible receiving ability to my advantage by flexing him out against linebackers and safeties out on an island if they dare to play man against him. Because if corners couldn't handle this dude, then linebackers sure as hell won't be able to either, and he will eat them alive regularly. Felton is a very, very good complementary weapon in the mold of, as I said, Jamin Davis, Reggie Bush, Austin Eckler, James White, all of those kinds of receiving backs that are more receiver than runner, but can still be both. And if he goes to a team that knows how to use that kind of weapon, and yes, I'm looking at you, Patriots, he will be successful. He's way too good in that role not to be successful. Keep an eye on him if you are a dynasty PPR player in fantasy, like I am, because there's a decent chance that I'm going to own him on literally every single one of my dynasty teams in some capacity. And I suggest that, again, depending on where he gets drafted to, you should all own some shares of him as well. And that, my friends, leads us all the way to number 1 on our list, the second scariest Terry on the East Coast, to Marion Terry, wide receiver from Florida State. Now, first of all, before you check his stat lines and click off this video because you think I've gone absolutely insane, please just hear me out and indulge me by completely disregarding his 2020 season entirely. Just throw it fully out the window because as far as I'm concerned, it does not matter at all. Terry's draft stock fell like crazy this past year because he barely produced throughout the 6 games he was on the field, and then he opted out after said lack of production, which looks bad, I'll give you that, but keep in mind that he was playing through a knee injury for the entire first month, then got an operation to try to clean it up, then he played a couple more games just to see if he could, and it still didn't feel right, and then he opted out. So he was never healthy at all. He didn't really have a true offseason to try to get prepared for the year because, again, COVID. And overall, if you take anything from 2020 at all, it's that he wanted to play and he wanted to compete despite having every reason not to compete, but eventually it just got to a point where he was doing more harm to himself than good, so he shut it down. If you go off of what he did in the 2019 season though, that's where we saw the real Marion Terry. 6'4", 215 pounds, legit low 4.4 speed, maybe even high 4.3 if we're being honest. He's got solid hands, not great hands, but solid, and he dominated on a bad Florida State offense while running basically the same route tree that DK Metcalf did at Ole Miss. Lots of hitches, curls, slants, some crossing routes, lots of go routes, obviously. There was not a lot of nuance to his game. But because of his size and speed, he killed people on those routes the same way that DK did, and he still does to this day in Seattle. Now, is he quite as fast as Metcalf or as big or as physical? No, and I'm not saying that he is, but he is in that same neighborhood at least. So I think on the right team, he can be a really productive player in the same ways that DK is productive. And by that, I mean using his size to box out corners on in-breaking routes, using that speed to get over the top as kind of a quick strike option if he's left one-on-one on the backside, or by setting him up for catch and run opportunities on shallow crossing routes because, again, once he's up to full stride, there's very few DBs that can keep up with him in pursuit. There's a lot of ways to get the most out of his talent, but it's going to take the right coaching staff to make that happen because they have to commit to his skill set and not try to turn him into something that he isn't. In terms of best fits for him, I'm immediately drawn to the Kansas City Chiefs. They still need, in my opinion, at least one more dynamic wide receiver with size to complement Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. I think he also fits the Ravens, who still might need a true X receiver on the outside, especially if you're like me and you don't really know what to make of Miles Boykin yet. And he probably also fits the Bears too, who may or may not be losing Allen Robinson this offseason, so they're going to have to get another X receiver with upside as well to potentially replace somebody like Robinson. And that, my many thousands of drinking buddies, is the end of the road for now. I have a very strong suspicion that I'm going to be doing another one of these kind of underrated player highlight specials at some point this draft season, maybe multiple to be honest, because there's a lot of really underrated gems in this draft class that I think all of you really should know about. But before I do that, I do have a minor homework assignment for all of you, and that's to leave me a comment down below and kind of help me catch up on this draft class. I've only been looking at these guys for maybe 5 or 6 weeks tops in depth, so I'm pretty far behind the rest of draft media. I really need to know who you guys like as kind of your own underrated draft gems in this class, because I need to know who to look at. So please tell me who you want to scout, tell me your favorite underrated player, tell me the guy that you like more than anyone else so that I can go look at them and maybe, just maybe, feature them on my next episode. In the meantime, I'm going to have my first deep dive episode releasing later this weekend, probably on Sunday morning, if I can help it, and that's going to be on my number 1 linebacker in this entire class, again, so far, and that is Notre Dame's Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I'll see you guys back here in a couple days for that, and until then, cheers. Thank you for watching this week's episode, and also thank you to our sponsor for the week, Magic Spoon. Unfortunately, one of the harder parts of pushing 30 for me has been slowly but surely giving up eating things that I used to love as a kid, and one of those was sugary cereal. I used to start every morning with a bowl of cereal because it was quick and easy and tasted good, but as I got older I had to stop that habit because most cereals you buy at the store are really bad for you. There's tons of sugar and tons of carbs, and they just aren't good health-wise at all. But Magic Spoon is different. Each serving has 0 grams of sugar, 14 grams of protein, and only 4 net grams of carbs, and only about 140 calories too. It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and non-GMO, so it's healthy and hearty for people on virtually any diet. Plus, the best part is that they all taste great too. You can get a wide variety of flavors ranging from cinnamon to cocoa to frosted to fruity, peanut butter, and even blueberry too. No matter what kind of unhealthy cereal you like that's typically bad for you, Magic Spoon has a healthy alternative for you to try. So, if you're interested in checking out Magic Spoon and making your diet that much healthier, you can go to magicspoon.com at the link in the description below, build your very own custom variety box with any flavors you want, and use promo code FILMROOM at checkout to get $5 off your order. And if you don't like it for any reason, Magic Spoon will fully refund you with their 100% happiness guarantee, no questions asked. Again, that is magicspoon.com at that link in the description below, and promo code FILMROOM at checkout on any variety box you want to get $5 off your order.